Title: Every night, he entered his stepmom's room, but one day, she locked the door. The door was always open. Adrian leaned on the balcony railing of the two-story house nestled in a quiet Los Angeles suburb. The orange hue of the California sunset bathed the neighborhood in a warm glow, but inside him, shadows stretched long and deep. His father, Mark, had left early that morning for another business trip, his fourth this month. And as always, the silence he left behind was filled with the quiet hum of Grace, Adrian's stepmother. Grace wasn't like most women her age. At 47, she carried herself with the kind of poise and elegance that made time feel irrelevant. She wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. Her soft voice, the gentle way she poured her wine, the quiet steps in silk robes late at night. Since she had married Mark 3 years ago, she had become the center of Adrian's confusion and fascination. He had tried to fight it. He had stayed out late, drowned in books at his college library, even dated girls just to forget the way Grace looked at him sometimes across the dinner table, with eyes that lingered just a second too long. But lately, something had shifted. Last week, as he passed her bedroom late at night, her door had been slightly open. Just enough for the scent of her lavender perfume to waft out. Just enough to hear the soft music she always played when she thought no one was listening. He hadn't meant to look, but he did. She sat by her mirror in a white satin gown, brushing her hair slowly, as if lost in some far-off memory. Their eyes met, just for a second, in the mirror. She didn't flinch. She didn't close the door. She just kept brushing. And Adrian? He didn't sleep that night. Tonight, the house was quiet again. Mark was gone. And Grace, she was in her room. Adrian stood at his bedroom door for a long moment. He could hear the faint music playing again. Soft jazz. Smooth, slow. Like a silent invitation. He walked down the hall, each step heavy with hesitation, excitement, guilt, and curiosity. Her door, as always, was slightly open. He knocked. No answer. He pushed gently. Inside, the room smelled of roses and vanilla. A candle flickered on the dresser. Grace sat by the window, a book in her hand, wearing a silk robe the color of deep wine. "You're awake," she said, without turning. "I couldn't sleep," Adrian replied. Grace finally looked at him, then stay a while. Just 4 words, but they unlocked something in him. They talked about nothing and everything. She asked about his studies, his friends, his dreams. He asked about her past, before Mark, before this house, before all of this. She spoke softly, with that same distant smile, like she was remembering another life. He didn't know how long he sat there, only that it felt like time had stopped. And when she finally looked into his eyes and placed her hand gently on his, the silence between them said more than words ever could. But nothing more happened that night. He left the room, heart pounding, mind spinning, but hands clean. Still, that became routine. Every night, same time, same door, same soft jazz, same Grace, waiting, until tonight. Adrian walked down the hall, breath shallow with anticipation. But when he reached her door, it was closed. For the first time, he knocked softly. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. He stood there for a full minute, staring at the doorknob as if it might explain something. Why tonight? Why now? Then he noticed, under the door, a piece of folded paper. He bent down, picked it up, and slowly opened it. In Grace's delicate handwriting were just 3 words. Not tonight, Adrian. Chapter 2. The Locked Door. Adrian stared at the note in his hand, the 3 simple words burning through his chest like acid. Not tonight, Adrian. It wasn't just rejection. It was a message. A shift. A sudden crack in the pattern they had fallen into, night after night. The door that was always open, both literally and metaphorically, had closed. And Adrian didn't know why. He returned to his room, the walls suddenly colder, the silence suddenly louder. He lay on his bed but didn't sleep. His mind replayed every detail of their previous nights. The way she looked at him, how her fingers had brushed his, how her voice had softened just for him. Something had changed. But what? The next morning, Adrian came downstairs to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of quiet humming. Grace stood in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing a simple robe, the same one he had seen her wear during those late-night talks. She turned as he entered, her face calm, composed, almost untouched. "Good morning," she said with a light smile, as if nothing had happened. "Morning," Adrian replied, his voice lower than usual. She poured him coffee, slid the cup toward him, and returned to her own seat. "Sleep well?" Adrian looked at her for a long second. No. She didn't respond immediately. Just sipped her coffee, eyes not meeting his. Finally, she said, "Sometimes it's better not to." That was all. For the rest of the day, Adrian couldn't concentrate. He skipped his classes, sat in the backyard, stared at the trees, and wondered what line he had unknowingly crossed. Had she felt guilty? Did she regret letting him into her space? Into her silence? By evening, his restlessness turned into desperation. He had to talk to her. He had to know. As night fell, Adrian stood outside her room once again. The light was on. Music played, but not the soft jazz she usually played. Tonight it was classical, cold, distant. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. "Grace," he said softly, "can we talk?" A pause. Then her voice, through the door. "Go to bed, Adrian." He closed his eyes. Her voice was firm, motherly almost. But beneath it, he could hear something else. Fear? Regret? Desire? He couldn't tell. 2 more days passed, and every night, the door stayed closed. Until the 3rd night. This time, there was no note, no light, no music. The door was unlocked, slightly open, just like before. The silence inside the room was almost heavier than sound. Adrian pushed it gently. She was there, sitting by the mirror, but her face was turned away. "Why did you lock it?" he asked. Grace didn't answer right away. She looked at his reflection in the mirror, eyes tired, lips parted slightly, robe slipping from one shoulder. "Because I forgot who I was," she said quietly. Adrian stepped in, heart racing. "And now?" She stood slowly and turned to face him. "Now, I remember." He took a step closer. "What does that mean?" She shook her head. "It means you should leave." But he didn't move. "Grace," he whispered, voice trembling, "I need to know if you feel it too. Or if I'm just losing my mind." Grace closed her eyes. "You're not losing your mind." Adrian reached for her hand. Gently, cautiously. She didn't pull away. Just when he thought the distance between them had disappeared forever, she stepped back. "This isn't love, Adrian. This is loneliness. And loneliness can lie." He didn't agree. But for the first time, he didn't argue. He simply walked out. And this time, she didn't stop him.
Secrets in the dark. The house felt different now. Quieter, like it was holding its breath. Adrian moved through it like a ghost, avoiding Grace during the day, haunted by her words at night. This isn't love. This is loneliness. And loneliness can lie. But if it was just loneliness, then why did it feel like something sacred had been broken? Why did her absence hurt more than her presence ever did? He couldn't focus. Not on school. Not on friends. Not even on the things that used to keep him distracted. He was stuck in a loop, playing her words on repeat, trying to figure out what she really meant. And then one night he heard it. Soft crying. Barely audible. Coming from her room. Adrian got up, heart pounding, and crept toward the door. It was closed again, like always, but this time there was no music, no scent of perfume. Just silence and her muffled sobs. He hesitated, then knocked. "Grace," he whispered. "Are you okay?" No answer. He leaned his head against the door. "Please, just let me talk to you." Still silence. Adrian turned the knob slowly. It wasn't locked. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a small lamp near the bed. Grace sat with her knees pulled up to her chest, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her soul together. When she looked up, her eyes were red. Not from just crying, from hiding pain for too long. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice hoarse. "I heard you," Adrian said gently. I couldn't ignore it. She looked away. You should have. No, I couldn't. I care about you. I'm not going to act like I don't. Grace closed her eyes. You don't know the full story. Adrian stepped closer. Then tell me. She looked at him like she was debating whether or not she could trust him, not with her secrets, but with the truth of who she was. I married your father because I was afraid to be alone, she began slowly. Not because I loved him. He was safe, kind, generous. But I was never in love with him. Adrian didn't interrupt. He listened, heart pounding. And then you came back from college, and suddenly there was someone in the house who saw me. Not as a wife, not as a mother, but as a woman. And that terrified me. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself, because I started to feel again. Adrian walked over, took her hand gently. So did I. She looked into his eyes, for the first time in days, and something inside her cracked. I tried to stop it. I tried to put a wall between us. But every night, I heard your footsteps. I waited, hoped, and then hated myself for hoping. Her voice broke. Adrian cupped her face. I don't care about what's right or wrong anymore. I just care about you. She closed her eyes as a tear slipped down her cheek. You don't know how dangerous that is, she whispered. Then let it be dangerous, he replied. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, not with heat, but with all the fear, confusion, and longing they had been trying to bury. They didn't go further that night, but something had changed again. Not like before, not a line crossed in the dark. This time it was a choice, and choices are harder to undo. Chapter 4. The Hidden Letter. Adrian hadn't slept all night, not because of what happened, or rather, what didn't happen between him and Grace, but because of what she said before their kiss. You don't know how dangerous that is. What did she mean? What danger? Was it about his father? About getting caught? Or was there something else? Something Grace still wasn't telling him? By morning, Adrian couldn't take the silence anymore. He needed answers. And this time, he wasn't going to wait behind a closed door to get them. He entered the kitchen expecting to see Grace. The usual robe, her hair tied loosely, her back turned as she stirred coffee. But she wasn't there. The cup was already made. And on the table was something he hadn't seen in years. A box. His father's old wooden box. The one with a lock. Adrian's hands paused mid-reach. It was slightly open. Inside were letters. Dozens. All in Grace's handwriting. Some sealed. Some torn. One sat on top, addressed in faded ink. To Adrian, read only when you're ready to see the truth. Adrian froze. His name. Her handwriting. His breath caught in his throat as he slid the letter out and unfolded it. Adrian, if you're reading this, it means I've failed to keep distance. It means you've looked at me the way no one ever should. And worse, I let you. But there's something you don't know. Something I buried the day I married your father. I knew your real mother. I met her long before I met Mark. She was my sister. Adrian's heart stopped. His hands began to shake. He read the lines again. And again. She was my sister. Grace wasn't just a stepmom. She was his blood aunt. The letter continued. Your mother died young. I couldn't handle the grief. I distanced myself from the family, moved to New York, started over. But years later, when I saw Mark again, a widower now, I stepped back into the past, into your life. At first, it was guilt. I thought I could protect you, be some kind of silent guardian. But the moment you grew up, the moment I looked at you and didn't see my sister's son, I knew I'd made a mistake. And now, I fear we're both too far gone. Adrian stood up, the room spinning. His aunt. His mother's sister. How could Grace not tell him? How could he have crossed those lines? Lines soaked in blood and memory. He slammed the letter shut and ran upstairs. She wasn't in her room. He opened every door in the house. Nothing. Finally, on the back porch, he saw her. Wrapped in a coat, coffee untouched, eyes hollow. She didn't flinch when he walked up. "You knew my mom," Adrian said quietly. She nodded. "She was your sister," he continued. "Yes." He sat beside her, but left distance between them. "You should have told me." Grace turned to him, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want you to hate me." Adrian clenched his fists. "You should have let me decide that." Silence. Long, aching silence. Then she whispered, "Do you hate me now?" Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. "No," he said. "But now, I don't know who I am anymore." Chapter 5. The night she let go. 3 days passed. No late-night visits. No whispers through the door. No footsteps in the hallway. Adrian stayed mostly in his room, haunted by memories and questions. The house that once felt charged with unspeakable tension now felt hollow, like the ghost of what almost was. Grace, too, had changed. Her face had lost its glow. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. She moved like someone carrying a secret that had finally crushed her. And maybe it had. One evening, as the sky turned violet over the quiet American suburb, Grace knocked on Adrian's door for the first time. He opened it slowly. She didn't step inside. Just stood there, eyes glassy, holding something. "I need to say goodbye," she said. Adrian's heart skipped. "Where are you going?" "I rented a place in Vermont. Quiet. Isolated. I need time to think. To breathe." Adrian stared. "And me?" Grace's lips trembled. "You need to find your life again, Adrian. The version of you that existed before me. I don't want that version." "You need him," she whispered, and then she handed him a small envelope. His name. Again. The same handwriting. "This is the last letter," she said. "Don't open it tonight. Wait until you're ready to let me go." He reached for her hand. "Don't do this." But she pulled away. "This was never supposed to happen," she said, voice breaking. "And yet it did. I loved you in a way that scared me. But now, I love you enough to leave." And with that, she turned, no kiss, no goodbye hug, no final touch. Just silence. And her footsteps down the stairs one last time. 3 months later, spring had returned. So had Adrian, to himself, to clarity, to healing. He stood at the lake by the old park bench where Grace once read books in the summer. He finally opened the envelope. "Adrian, if this letter is in your hands, it means I left you not because I stopped loving you, but because I finally loved you the way you deserved. Not as a broken woman clinging to warmth in a cold house, but as someone who wanted to set you free. You gave me something I didn't think I could ever feel again: desire, youth, affection. But those feelings belong to a version of me that shouldn't have existed in your story. I was your stepmother, your aunt, a protector, and I failed. I hope one day, someone loves you the way I couldn't. Without secrets, without shame, without the burden of blood between them. I will always remember you, not as a mistake, but as a moment of impossible love. Forever in the quiet, Grace." Adrian folded the letter with trembling hands. He let out a deep breath and stared at the water. She was gone, but her memory, like the echo of her voice in the dark, would always remain. Not as guilt, but as a chapter. Closed, but never erased.